All right, so let's get underway and hopefully she can join us. We have our quorum. Yes, we do. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the July 14th, 2020 meeting of the Milton Conservation Commission. Commission is appointed by the Select Board to implement the rules and regulations of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Milton Town Bylaws. As a matter of public meeting formality, the meeting is recorded. We'd ask that everybody that speaks, and we invite everybody to speak and ask questions and make comments, but please identify yourself. As a matter of formality also, we identify ourselves. My name is John Kiernan.
Arthur Doyle.
Jerry Burke.
Hans Vanlingen.
And Steve Ivers, Conservation Agent.
All right, Jerry Burke, I could just barely hear you. Can you say something?
Is this a test all right?
No, that's perfect. That's good. Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, first on the agenda is Informational Milton Academy. That's their annual or semi-annual status report. They emailed today and asked Kathy to continue this until the August session, to which we agreed. So that's off until August. Second on the agenda is request for determination of applicability. That's the Central Avenue Bridge over the Neponset River. Steve, is anybody presenting on that?
I believe Mr. Huckabee is here on that. Is that correct, Mr. Huckabee?
There we go. Yes, I am. And Joe Flory from the city of Boston as well.
Okay,
Hey,
great.
good evening all.
Hi, everyone. Are we putting the presentation up, Preston, or does the commission have it for us?
I sent it over.
We have it. I'm getting to it right now. I'm trying to figure out how to share the screen again. That's all. Okay, and
It also looks like Ingrid's connecting slowly.
okay, we're getting there. Let's see. The presentation was in which file? Do you remember? First, second, or third file?
I believe it's that one. Oh, wait a minute.
Let's find out.
Should say presentation on it.
Okay, is that not it?
I think it may be the one just above.
Okay, let's exit that one out and try again. File open. And I put it at number 2, but where are we here? Oh, we're on the wrong date. Hang on, sorry.
Oh, I believe that second file is it. Although I can't see the entire file name.
Is that it right there?
Most of it looks correct.
Okay. How's that?
We're just seeing the files still.
Yeah, you put it on the other screen.
Is this what you want?
We're just
No.
seeing the files still, Steve.
Oh, really?
We just got the table of contents.
You must have
Oh,
a second screen or something at home.
No, I'm just on a laptop right now. Share screen, and then we'll go to this one here, the second one.
The one above it.
Can you see anything there?
We just
No.
see the files.
Just the files. It says UI screen sharing. Michael Lynch, are you available? It says, yeah, UI screen sharing. On my laptop, it says UI screen sharing.
Well, we certainly see.
Just
You're
the
in there.
files. Just the
Yeah.
list of files, huh?
Correct.
Curious. Let me try that again. File, open. No?
Try opening
Huh.
the file first and then screen sharing.
Okay, let's see a new share. Let's try that. Huh. Nothing. Obviously nothing.
Steve, if you keep trying, I'll try to get Mike Lynch on the telephone.
Sure. We've had no trouble with this procedure a couple of times now in the past. I'm going to go into the file.
Well, it should be the file that we sent over was a Microsoft presentation, PowerPoint.
There were actually 3 files you sent over.
Yes, one,
Um,
And all
shall I
3
try to share?
are Acrobat files that I have. All 3 files that I have are Acrobat files. They're not PowerPoints. Okay.
I have the presentation here if it's easy enough for me to go ahead and share my screen.
Why don't we do that?
If Michael Lynch can do that,
I'm not able to at the moment.
yeah. And I don't know how to do that from here. Speaker view, recording. Michael, any idea? Huh. Why can't we see that?
Hey, Steve, are you there?
Yes.
Sorry, I had to call. My computer's not working. So we're just seeing, what you need to do is, you need to do a new share, but open the presentation first before you do the share.
Okay.
Because then, remember, have the presentation open so that when you hit screen share, then you have to actually select the presentation in the window that pops up in Zoom.
All right. So I've got a screen share. And there. And share. Can you folks see that?
There it is.
Is that it?
That's it.
that's the RDA itself. I am checking my email. I did send the PowerPoint presentation. I don't know if we
I've
can't
got
just.
I've got the presentation. One moment, okay? I'm going to stop it.
Hey, good evening, Mike Lynch, John Kiernan calling from the Conservation Commission. We're having some screen sharing difficulty.
John, I'm in the meeting.
Oh, you want? You're there. All
He's
right.
there.
John, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. Hallelujah.
Hang on a second. We're getting it. We're getting there. We're getting there.
Did I say I was glad to be back?
I think this is the one. Okay, that's supposed to be presentation. Now, how do we get back to everybody?
Okay.
Oh, then share screen. Can people see that?
Yes.
It's the
Is that-
RDA.
That's the RDA again, huh? I must have 2 copies of it. Okay, let me go.
If
You can
Find
see
it
that
easier,
there's a
do
second
you want
It's
one.
actually, we can see the title.
I can give
It's
the screen share to the developer if that's easier.
Why don't you do that?
Okay. Who
They
needs
have
the
it up?
screen share? Is it
I
Preston or Joseph?
have it up, so if you give it to Joe Fleury or Joseph Fleury.
Okay.
All right. All right. So Joseph, you should be all set.
All right.
Sorry about that.
And Mike, before you go, Ingrid Beatty looks like she's connected, but I don't know if she's waiting to get let in.
She's in. I just asked her to unmute herself, but
Okay.
I turned the waiting room off, so she was already admitted.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, unmuted.
Okay.
Hi,
Welcome,
Ingrid.
I don't have, for some reason, I don't have image though. I'm not sure why. Oh, start video. Is that it? Oh,
There you are.
Yep, there we go.
Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep,
Excellent.
got it.
All right. So I guess we'll get started here. I'm Joe Fleury with the Boston Public Works Department, alongside Preston Huckabee with Gill Engineering. They're our engineer on the job. We're here before you tonight for a request for determination of applicability for some work we're doing on the Central Avenue Bridge over the Neponset River. It's a City of Boston-owned structure that straddles the town line. The town line runs right down the center of the Neponset River. We're doing some maintenance activities Preston will get a little bit further into that. We'll just add that we went before the Boston Concom, I want to say last week, and same process, and got a negative determination of applicability. So we're here to get your folks' take on it, and with that, I'll toss it to Preston.
Okay, so Joe, if you move on to the next slide. All right, so we're just going to run down very quickly the scope of the work. My name is Preston Huckabee. I'm from Gill Engineering Associates. Basically, it's maintenance activities. We'll be removing the existing pavement, wearing surface on the bridge, scarifying the existing bridge deck via hydro demolition, which is high pressure water blasting. We don't anticipate the blast to go through the deck. It's just maintenance work on the surface itself. Placement of a new cement concrete wearing surface, replacement of the bridge expansion joint seals, cleaning and painting of the steel beams, minor steel repairs on the underside, minor concrete repairs to the existing substructure, and resurfacing the roadway with 25 feet approximately on the approaches of both ends. Joe, could you move to the next one? So all of the work is on the bridge structure. There's no work that's going to be performed on the bank, within the water, or in any of the resource areas. The contractor under contract will be required to comply with all federal, state, and municipal laws. The painting work and the abutment work will be fully contained on the underside of the bridge with a work platform and a painting containment system that will contain all of the debris and dust that's generated during the painting operations, and that will prevent the pollution and any releases in the air and soil surrounding the bridge, and all abatement and containment and lead disposal will be done properly. Joe, if you can move on to the next one.
Yeah, Preston, before you move on, can I ask you a question about that?
Certainly.
As part of the painting project, do you do any sandblasting to take off
Yes.
the old?
Yeah, so the existing steel will be blasted by sand and steel shot. The containment system is set up so that there is a vacuum pump that is attached to the containment unit. It's run through large hoses to a machine that collects all of the debris, separates it out, and it recycles the blast media. The containment system is typically, and this is part of the contractor design that the contractor will be submitting to the city for review, but basically it's typically a hung platform on the underside of the bridge that workers stand on. It has tarps or other similar means to provide an airlock area. The workers themselves have full environmental suits on when they're in there working. It can be a pretty nasty environment inside of there. But with the negative air pressure, air moves from the outside to the inside of the containment, and that is what prevents the dust and debris from getting out into the environment surrounding the bridge. I think if you've driven on any of the interstate highways, you've probably seen the containments on the bridges hanging underneath there at night, and you can see the recycler sitting on the side of the road. At Salis is a big company that's been doing a lot of work. I don't know if any of you have noticed the machines around, but they've been doing a lot of work down in Barnstable and Bristol and Plymouth counties. So, but it'll be something similar to that being done here.
All right, we had experience with that on the bridge, the railroad bridge that's closer to Adams Street. It would be the next bridge down at the Walter Baker chocolate factory. And I thought they did a pretty good job with that negative pressure containment.
Yeah, agree.
That's a fairly standard operation at this point.
Yep. So this shows the resource areas and the limits of work. On the Milton side, we'll be limiting it to the path that on the Neponset Trail. So that's going to be the extent that we'll be doing the resurfacing. So Joe, if you want to move on to the next slide. This just shows the cross-section and the general staging of the work. Everything, again, will be contained primarily within the road surface on the top side. A little bit of maintenance work will be done on the sidewalks. Joe, if you want to proceed. So this is a photograph of the top side. You can see the condition of the pavement, and that's the primary focus, again, that we'll be doing here. Joe, if you move to the next one. This is the underside. So from here, they'll be slinging a work platform, and this will be, or rather the steel beams will be cleaned and painted. And in this view on the right, you can see the bucket when we were out with the bridge snooper doing the inspection. Joe, if you want to move to the next. And this is just a view of the traffic setup they'll be using. The city will be coordinating with the MBTA on relocating the bus stops and accommodating pedestrians.
Preston, one other question. I should know the answer to this, but I don't. And that is, what's the status of the sewer relocation project that put the pipe over the top of the bridge?
I can touch on that. MWRA issued a notice to proceed, I want to say the 6th, whatever last Monday was. Their intent is to run the bypass on the north
North side, I believe.
east side. It'd be north, or up in the picture that we're looking at now. Their plan is to be out there until about the end of the year, at least for this particular portion of the job. We're looking to see if some of our work can happen concurrently. The topside work obviously can't. Well, that's there, but we might be able to do some of the underside. So we're working that out with our contractor to see what they think is feasible, and we'll talk with the MWRA to see if that works for all involved.
Is anyone else having difficulty hearing Joe?
No.
No.
Okay, maybe just my.
I can run back through. I don't know where you lost me. The MWRA is out there, or issued a notice to proceed as of last week. They'll be out there about until the end of the year with a bypass on this portion of their work over our bridge. So we'll be doing the topside work likely starting next spring, but we're looking into seeing if we can coexist on some of our underside work, the painting and the steel repairs.
Thank you.
Yep.
Can you give us a quick run through on how the pavement's stripped? You had mentioned that it's jetted.
So the pavement will be removed by small equipment just to strip it off, and then they'll come back with high pressure water wands to scarify the surface. That water will be collected and contained. We'll provide silt sacks at the drainage structures at the corners. There's 4 drainage structures at the 4 corners, so we'll protect those. And generally speaking, there isn't a lot of water that is generated through the work because it's very high pressure, some very small volume. And that's really intended just to remove the top loose material and deteriorated material. It's not intended to go through the deck. And the deck is actually not in bad shape, so we don't anticipate any locations where we're going to have to do any work that's going to require full depth. It's all going to be on the top side of it.
Yeah, if you guys are familiar with the area, the bus stop's on there, and it's kind of pushed the asphalt pavement, shoved it a little bit with the stopping and starting on the bridge. We're proposing to put back a concrete surface as opposed to asphalt, so that hopefully doesn't happen as we, after construction.
Can you tell us what the conditions were for the negative determination by Boston?
Joe, those haven't been issued yet, have they?
No, we had the meeting last week. I think the actual documentation, I'm mixing up my terminology here, but we'll come out there next meeting, which will be
Right.
Next Wednesday.
Yeah, 2 weeks. But it's just they said in the hearing that it would be their standard conditions.
What you had mentioned that the contractor is responsible for providing the plans on the controls that are out there.
That's correct.
At what point do you expect to have those deliverables?
Relatively soon. I guess it's going to depend on if they determine that it's feasible to coincide with the MWRA.
So if there's a condition, my only suggestion would be to provide us with a copy of that, those environmental control plans.
Sure.
That would just be my suggestion.
Joe, this is Jerry Burke. The bridge is what, owned jointly with the town of Milton and the city of Boston?
The city of Boston owns the structure.
The entire structure?
Correct.
Okay.
Unless you guys want to take half of it for us.
Oh, no, I wanted to thank you, but I guess I'll hold that.
Bridges are not cheap to take care of.
They are not.
And enjoy it.
All right.
I've got another question. For a while, there were some floating booms on the downstream of the bridge. It was in the context of the Elliott Street construction going on. Do you have provisions for booms just in the rare event that the containment system fails?
Preston, I don't think we have that as of now in the contract.
No, I don't know what we'd have to take a look at the contract to see what we have in there for, I mean, it's a general contract, so there's a lot of different components in there. But we weren't typically, we don't anticipate needing it. If the town, puts it in as a condition, then that's what you do.
Right, and I can't remember, John, I don't know if you remember on the railroad bridge.
Yes.
Did we have floating booms as a sort of belt and suspenders? I know they had the containment rig set up there, and I can't remember if we had floating booms or not.
I believe they had them on site. I don't know if they were stretched across the river,
Okay.
but I believe they were on site. Almost like a spill control plan.
Yep, exactly. It's sort of a fail-safe.
Any other commissioners with comments, questions? I can't see everybody's. Arthur, you good?
No questions.
Okay. Hans, any other questions?
Nope, none for me.
Members of the public? Seeing none, it appears to be an appropriate plan of action, and having some familiarity with a negative pressure containment system, I think it works. It's pretty good. So I would suggest that we entertain a motion to issue a negative determination with our usual standard conditions, but also to have the contractor submit the environmental control plans to us prior to beginning work, to give us notice when the work is to begin. And as Ingrid suggested, that we have booms present as a backup plan in any event, as a safety measure, so that if there were some kind of a failure, that they could be deployed immediately. Are there any other suggested special conditions to a negative determination?
Just to provide a copy of the environmental plans from the contractor.
I'm sorry, Hans, from the contractor to us?
Yes,
The contractor will submit it to the city for approval, and we're certainly happy to pass those along to the Conservation Commission if that's what you're.
Yes.
That's exactly.
Right.
Yes, thank you.
All right, with those special conditions, is there a motion to approve a negative determination?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good work.
Have a nice night.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yep. All right.
That'll be a nice enhancement.
Yes. Third on the agenda is a request for certificate of compliance at 750 Randolph Avenue. That's the gas take station.
And Shauna, are you there? And can you see this screen? Can you see the
Yes,
VHB screen?
yes, I can.
Great.
For the record, my name is Shona Patasteas. I'm with VHB and I'm representing Boston Gas Company. It might be easiest, Steve, the very last page is the as-built plan. I can kind of describe the project.
Okay, we'll get there in a moment. There we go. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit, okay,
Okay.
for you. Let's see. You want to go there, right? Is that correct?
Yep.
Good. Excellent. How's that?
Great. So this project started in 2017. It was an upgrade to an existing gas line that's in the area. This is it's a station that's off of 750 Randolph Ave, but it's right at the northern extent of the Blue Hills. It's behind a golf club up there. I can't remember, the name of it is slipping.
Quarry Hills.
Quarry Hills, that's it, yep. The project was to build a PIG receiver. A PIG is it's an acronym for Pipeline Inspection Gauge. And what it is an above ground infrastructure that essentially allows you to put a tool into and out of a pipeline that cleans, that inspects, that generally is kind of an upgrade against versus kind of the current inspection techniques, which is to I think they do X-rays. There's a number of different above ground methods. So this is an inline or in the interior of the pipeline inspection tools. They built a receiver in the kind of the gravel yard outside of the station here, and also changed out the elbow, the bend as it goes around the corner and up toward the north. The work that was on the Milton side, the town municipal line is kind of right in the elbow there. Yep. The Milton side of the work was really in 100-foot buffer zone. There was a small wetland kind of between the
It's down
little
here.
wetlands. That actually,
Oh, it's right here.
and there was another wetland as you're coming to the west of the station, which is actually a vernal pool as well, a beautiful vernal pool. So they accessed down the driveway, went out and built the PIG receiver and rebuilt the elbow. The work started in 2017, and due to a number of different delays, wasn't completed until about late summer of 2019. We didn't file the certificate of compliance because we wanted to give a season of vegetation growth to be able to, to have the full revegetation of any of the surfaces that were not gravel. That was primarily on the Quincy side, but just to give everything some time to reestablish. There is an as-built with the plan as requested in the order of conditions. And at this point, everything is fully revegetated.
Good.
So we're looking to close out the project.
As
And
I
I might-
Ingrid, that has to have been one of the most cold days of my life. Do you remember that sidewalk? Thought out and revegetated. Good.
And I was out there, let me think, Saturday, and it looks very good. The site is very, very nicely done.
Heritage sites were there too and all restored?
Yes. Yep. And the grass is growing very well on the Quincy side as well. And when I visited on Saturday, it was a very warm day. And I did see a spot turtle moving from the east to the west across the access road, which is just to the northwest of this location, which is sort of neat.
Did we lose John?
I think John and Ingrid.
Yeah. Very curious.
Here.
John's
Oh,
on
good.
I see Ingrid. I don't see John.
Huh.
John's muted.
Okay. I wonder if that happens
He came
automatically.
back. I'm sorry, I was actually talking there for a while. My internet crashed and I picked up another connection. But I was able to hear everything.
Okay. Did you want to repeat what you had to say, John?
No, I was just asking if there were other questions from commissioners or abutters and members of the public. It doesn't sound like it. And Steve, I had the one question, and I may have missed this when my system crashed there briefly. The yellow cones that were going to be removed.
Oh, not yellow cones, orange fence.
Orange fence, okay.
A little bit of orange fence. And Shauna has said that they will take care of that. Yes.
Are there any other erosion controls still present, or have they all been pulled at this point?
Everything's been pulled. And that fence was probably 50 feet off the access road to the north. Okay, that's where that fence is. On the ground, of course.
Steve, you found your way out of that place.
Good place for a fence.
Indeed.
All right. All right, if there are no more questions, is there a motion to approve this certificate of compliance?
So moved.
Take station. Is there a second? Is that a yes, Jerry?
So moved.
All right, is there
I'll
a second?
second.
All right, thanks. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shauna.
All right, next on the agenda is number 4. That's notice of intent 693 to 711 Randolph Avenue. This is a continued hearing.
Okay. All right. I'm going to put up the plans, I guess, right? How's that?
I think so. I'm sure we're going to be using them.
Yes. Okay. Let's see. Gesundheit.
Excuse me. Thank you.
And share screen. Come on.
And while you're sharing the screen, I should ask all commissioners if they are in possession of the July 6th, 2020 CEI correspondence, and then a second memorandum dated July 13th, 2020. Does everybody have a copy of those two documents?
Yes.
Ingrid, did you get those?
I did.
All
I
right.
did. I'm on my screen. Let me see if I can.
Hans, Jerry Burke?
Is
Very
it one
good.
package, July 6th?
July 6th is the first one, and the second one is July 13th. And I should ask the applicant or Brian as the representative, have you had an opportunity to see all these documents?
Yes, we received them both today.
Great, thank you.
And do you see it up on screen? There's a plan. Is it shared?
It is shared. It's too small for me to tell what number that is.
Happens to be one of the plans, that's all.
One of them, okay.
Is there a place you want to go, Brian, or anybody with you?
Well, Scott Morrison is on the line. Jim Burke can't be with us tonight. But Mr. Chairman, I didn't know that we needed to make a presentation. We just received these materials. We can certainly speak to them at a very top level. But we had assumed that the commission was going to continue to ask its questions this evening.
Yes, and I understand that completely. And I think that's fair. I don't have a particular agenda, but I note that the questions were asked, I'd rather the questions were addressed that went in the written form. My initial concern was that at our last meeting, I indicated that I had a couple of high points. One was, is it constructible? Given the fact that there was what I anticipated would be a collapse of the trench. And I think that has been addressed in terms of metal sheeting, box culverts, and the plywood. I don't get that one, but putting that aside for the time being. My other major point was a hydrology study, and I'm still looking for that. I know it's kind of swept into the alternatives analysis, but that looked to me more like a construction cost analysis. And I recognize that cost is a component of it, but I'm still looking for a hydrological survey that would indicate the impact of mounding. And that is the difference between the abutment structure with the culvert as opposed to the pier suspended plank bridge structure. I'm still looking for the water analysis of that. And Brian, you may be able to, or maybe Scott could address that. That is, if you have any intention to give us a hydrological study.
We can speak to that issue.
Okay.
At a top level. Jim is not with us tonight, so we really cannot dig into the details. I know he's working on some documentation to support our conclusions, but we can speak to that to the top level. But first, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to back up and make sure your questions are being answered, particularly about the constructability issue, whether CEI has given the commission and you the information that you need.
Well, my quick reaction to reading it is no. And I understand that there was one section, I guess, of the report that indicated that as long as it only goes down 36 inches, that is the trenching, then some form of plywood would serve. That's a hard sell for me. To me, it would require metal sheathing because of the soil structure and the fact that these are hydraulic and very, very wet soils. So I can see a collapse of the trench even at 36 inches. But if you're going down, and I understand this will be the center of I'll call it the right of way, but if you're going down 10 feet to bury the utilities, that's pretty deep. And understanding it's in the middle and it's going to be underneath the roadway. And I guess I don't want to get diverted because my real concern was sort of at the outside, the extent of the limit of work. That's where I fear the soils are going to collapse. So,
John?
And that was sort of the origin of my question, is this constructible?
John?
And I really, I don't have confidence that my question was answered.
Perhaps, Mr. Chairman, through you, I would ask CEI if they could respond to that.
So this is Hans. Let me is that something we can just condition?
What?
If the use of metal shoring as opposed to allowing the contractor to utilize plywood? I mean,
Sure.
I mean, is
Yes.
that something that would be reasonable to impose as a condition?
I believe wholeheartedly. What I'm looking for is the data, the scientific data as to whether or not these particular soils are going to maintain their shape when you dig down, whether it's 36 inches or if it's 72 inches. Is there any hope that that's going to hold its shape? And I would suggest not. But again, I'm not trying to play engineer on that. Just having dug trenches for Hunan construction in my youth, I've been in a trench that collapsed on me, so I know how it happens. So I'm just looking for a little bit more confidence that this can be done, and I'm talking about below the 36-inch level. And I don't know if Bob Hotzel could answer that.
Again, it would be great if we could hear from CEI in defense of their document to see how they came to that conclusion.
Are they on tonight? Is there
Yeah,
somebody here?
Yes,
Bob was in.
Okay,
I'm
good.
here, and I believe Matt Lundstedt is also on the call. It appears to be muted. Matt, are you here? But I can
Sounds
see-
like he's coming through a door.
Or
Yeah.
falling down the stairs?
Right.
Yeah, I can see his number there. I can see that he's muted.
Okay.
You know, other than the response that you can see in the letter, any more specific responses to questions, that's really his turf to answer that question. If you give me a second, I will text him and see if he can unmute his phone, or I can get maybe he needs to redial in or something like that. But if you give me just a few seconds, I can see where he's at.
Sure.
And while he's doing that, for the commission's benefit, I had not taken a detailed look at, I think it was plan number 7 that shows, I was under the impression that the sewer line had to actually go underneath the culvert. That is not correct. That the sewer line is going to go on top of the culvert and then enter a drop inlet and then go down the 10 feet, okay? I was under the wrong impression last month, just for your information.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm hearing from Matt that he has to be unmuted on your end. He's not able to unmute. So whoever the moderator is needs to unmute him.
Okay, Mike, are you listening? Meeting control. I have small controls here, but I only have sharing control, I think. I don't think I have any other control. But I will check here. No. Where might that be on the screen? Any idea? Anybody?
I'm trying to get Mike Lynch now.
Okay. Let's see. Nope, that's not it. Oops. That's not it.
Hey, Mike, John Kiernan, about 8:13. We're having another problem trying to get something unmuted. And I wonder if you could just jump back on and help us out. It's Mad Lundstedt, who's a CEI representative, and we're looking to him to speak, and hopefully he can help us. Thanks.
While you're doing that, Matt's actually on a parallel track attempting to dial in again to see if that would resolve the problem.
All right, good, thank you.
Mhm.
Hey, Mike, John Kiernan again. Hi, we're trying to get Matt Lundstedt unmuted. He's on the call. He's one of the engineers. All right, good. Thank you. Thanks. That was Mike Lynch. He's going to help Matt right now.
Right, okay, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
While we're waiting for Matt to join us, if we could address the what we'll call the hydraulic issue you raised again before.
Yes.
If I may, I'll ask Scott Morrison to speak to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jim Burke is in the process of putting that together. He was working on it today, I guess, and he's just going to put it in a format that can be submitted. So we're planning on providing that.
No, good. All right, thanks, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
Being an optimist, I think we'll correct this technical glitch shortly. But if it goes on too long, we can actually go through the report and the responses to the applicant's responses, because I did have some additional individual questions. And Scott, the first one that I've got is, there seem to be a number of questions that are related to separate and distinct wetland replication areas versus putting all of them into one area, that one contiguous area. And there seems to be some controversy over that. And I'm wondering, is it possible from the site plan perspective for you to actually do that, to put the replication area into a contiguous plot?
Yeah, I guess this is the second round of comments that we've got that, comments that it's the commission. It sounds like the commission and CEI's preference that we combine that into one location. Based upon the CEI letter, it appears that,
Hello?
hello? I think we've got
Hi,
somebody.
it's Matt.
Okay, Scott, do you want to?
Hi, it's Matt. Sorry to interrupt. I'm only on by phone, so the phone number had to be muted on your end.
All right, fine. Scott, do you mind just deferring and let Matt address the first issue?
That's fine.
Hey, John, can you hear me?
Yes.
For Matt on the phone, it's just *6 to mute and *6 to unmute. So if you become muted, you just hit *6 and it'll unmute yourself. But you're unmuted now.
Okay. So I heard the question. Plywood will not work for the sewer extension. Our understanding, based on their presentation at the last hearing, is that for the utilities, they'll be using trench boxes. I think the only place the plywood may work is when they're installing the footings, which they clarified for the culvert itself would only be about 3 feet deep, and they're very narrow footings. They're only 2 or 3 feet wide. They may only need a piece of plywood at the end of that, inside wherever the limit of the silt fence is, to hold back that soil, because it's such a short, narrow excavation in terms of length along the wetland line. For the deeper ones, they'll have to use trench boxes. That soil will not hold up to 10 feet. And it's illegal. Anything over 5 feet, they have to have trench boxes. They have to be steel. They have to be braced or a alternate design shore-wise. So.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
may I ask Scott Morrison to reply to that?
Of course. Scott.
Yeah, so I think that's what the intent is, to use the trench boxes for the deeper excavations and plywood shoring for those small excavation areas.
All right, fair enough. Is there, I don't know who to ask this of, but it's kind of an engineering question, but I do some architects and engineer work, and I had some construction defect work, and a number of cases that I have involve buildings that settle when there is particularly in an urban area where the buildings have common walls and the foundations are right next to each other. And if you dig down and you're trying to build a taller building, then you have to dig a deeper foundation. And there's a lot of settling of the adjacent buildings, and sometimes it causes cracks and whatnot. It's settling that I'm getting at. One of the techniques that is used for a settling building, they have lasers that can actually measure a quarter of an inch, an eighth of an inch if the building moves, keeping in mind that there's some sway to a building. But they actually use lasers. They also use vibration sensors to see whether or not there's movement in the building. And my question is, in this case, your limit of work is going to be, right next to whatever you've got, 4,800 square feet or whatever, 4,957 square feet. It's very, very close to the line. Is there some practical way to actually cite that limit of work so that if there is a trench collapse, or if the excavator needs to go over into the wetlands and expand beyond that 5,000, beyond the whatever it is, 4,900 square feet, is there a practical way to? I'm not talking about using lasers and a quarter of an inch. I didn't mean that. I'm just suggesting that there are techniques in the construction industry to watch a line to make sure that the contractor stays within the limit of work, as opposed to extending further into the wetlands. And I could ask that of both CEI or
Yeah, this is Matt from CEI. What I've seen before in similar situations where it's this tight is they'll actually set the erosion controls just inside the line of the limit of work. And those erosion controls are, whatever, once
dug in. You'd need about 6 inches beyond that, so you're not undoing those stakes. And only where you'd need to be digging right next to that, I think, would you be worried about this? And again, their sequence of work, what they plan on doing is not opening up long lengths where they're that close to the wetland line. And I say the wetland line, not the wetland line. Let's call it the limit of work through the wetlands. They're only going to open up enough area to get either, these. It sounds like the precast wall they're planning on using. Those blocks are only about 3 feet long, and they'll only need to excavate, a bucket, a machine bucket worth wide, to get enough room to place the foundation stone and then put those stones on top. And I think that's where, if they've, kind of shimmied, they're not going to use 1/4-inch plywood. It's just going to snap. And I think they're probably thinking plywood because I think it would be actually harder to work within a trench box, at least for the foundation of the 3-sided box and the base course of the stone wall. I'm not sure you could even work within a trench box because those foundations are running perpendicular to the limits of work cutting through the wetland, at least for the footings of the 3-sided box. And then each stone is going to be, you kind of only need to open up, I guess, the inside side where the access road will be rather than the outside side. The outside side only needs to be, open cut for whatever the setback distance is. And I think they have, it's close. They have 2 or 3 feet to work with down at the base of this, the first layer that goes on the wetland is going to be their tightest spot. And in their sequence of work, they've indicated they're not going to open up it's not like they're going to cut a trench for the base of their wall 150 feet long on both sides through the entire wetland. I think they're going to have to do it piecemeal and have a little, almost like laying 10 feet of pipe at a time. You open up enough trench to get that next length of pipe in. You don't open up the whole thing.
I understand that, and I think you're very articulate on that. What about the equipment itself, though, that if you're within 2 feet of your limit of work and you're trying to dig a trench, isn't the excavator itself going to be further into the wetlands?
No, they're going to construct an access road first through the wetland. So they'll cut something that's much nearer than their limit of work, probably only, I don't know, I would guess 10 or 15 feet wide, to create the crossing first with some temporary culverts. And then they'll work off that access road on either side a little bit at a time till they have both these foundations in, which will cut across that access road, and then each stone which kind of run parallel to the access road and form the base of the retaining wall.
But if the outside of the retaining wall is within 2 feet of the limit of work, I'm still stuck. I'm trying to visualize how you could get an excavator with tracks on either side of the bucket.
You don't need to. They'll use a machine which has an articulating head, so you don't have to. I'm imagining they won't be installing this wall or digging this foundation, straddling it like they would in a trench box situation. In this case, they'd set up they'd make their cut and kind of put their plywood or a small metal plate in on the outside, and they'd only be working on the inside of that, including both tracks of the machine.
Hans, I thought that was you, Hans, but I couldn't hear.
No, that wasn't me. I was on mute.
All right. Okay, I understood what you said. Thank you.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, I'm speculating as the peer reviewer and having seen construction projects. I've seen it done. I've seen foundation walls done this close to a wetland line, and they'll work. The machine is not allowed over the line. That's temporary impact. They'll have to figure out what machine works for them working from that temporary access road they've constructed within the two sides, the limits of work. And their contractor could probably speak better to that.
Understood. Thank you.
This is the thing. Emails from us sent to the other tribes about pushes and some confusion about the security concern.
John, you should ask Scott to conclude his discussion regarding the wetland replication area, I think. That would be my suggestion.
Yes. Good point. Yeah, and actually, that's right where I am. I'm on page 7 of the July 6th memorandum, and now that's exactly what the area is.
Mm-hmm.
And Scott, can you address that issue as to whether or not?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not just putting them together. It is. It's also the loss of the buffer. That there's a net loss of upland buffer, and that's of concern too. And I'm just trying to figure out if. And there was one suggestion CEI made, and maybe Steve, you could help out with the map. But they were talking about I think it's the northeast corner. There's like 7,000 square feet approximately.
Are you looking at the screen?
Yes, I am.
Yep.
It's right in this area.
Yeah, Scott Morrison here. We have gone through this report today, read through this, and we're going to look at the potential of changing the replication areas so that we can preserve some of the buffer zones, constructing it on a location that Steve's kind of got highlighted currently. See if we can get the area there. We need kind of a haul road to get in there to do that work. But the proposal would be to get in there, excavate that, create the replication area, and then probably do some plantings as we work our way out of there so that we've restored the buffer zone.
And so for clarification purposes, the only reason we're mentioning it as a buffer zone is for function and value purposes, not as it relates to the bylaw. So the request is to have a vegetated buffer to the wetland replication area to ensure the success of the replication area, and it's not as a buffer per the town bylaw. So
understood. And I think it's I think it's something we're certainly willing to work with the commission to address the concerns, and I think we'll look at that, and I think we can come up with a solution that addresses that issue.
All right, I have a question, and I may be bouncing around, so I apologize, and we can go back on track with the other commissioners. But if I could jump ahead to the snow removal plan, I know that there have been some changes to that. One of the concerns that I think CEI originally had was that we need to know what the plan is now, as opposed to relying upon your experience in other projects. And this may have already been answered in the original filings, but because there's so much infiltration of the snow stored on site, and I'm not talking about when it exceeds a certain level and you have to take it off site. I'm talking about that which is designed to stay on site and to melt and infiltrate. What do you have by way of chemical controls for de-icing? I just don't have that right in front of me, and I don't know if you had part of your O&M plan in the original filing. But I would be concerned about the infiltration. Everything is so close to the wetlands here that it would create a problem if you were using chemical melting agents.
Maybe some specific requests that we make along the way as well as for certain.
Scott Morrison here. I think the intent would, if where possible, you could get that so that it would drain back and be treated through the stormwater system with that melting snow, if where possible. Is that what you're looking for?
Well, yeah, it is. I mean, it goes right to the heart. I mean, you've got plans here for infiltration back into the system. I'm on page 12 of the July 6th report. And I was just concerned with, in the original comment, CEI has concerns that the applicant has not provided an adequate plan to create a maintainable parking area or to encourage infiltration. And then there was a response to that. And you're basically saying, well, we're experienced in doing that, so, trust us, that kind of thing. And my concern is here, it says in your response, areas adjacent to the parking areas and building provide infiltration areas, and the areas that are selected provide the snow melt enter the drainage system for treatment. I'm just trying to figure out where those storage areas are and how do they fit into the drainage system as opposed to the infiltration back into the wetland area.
I think there's two separate things.
I know there's two separate things.
The stormwater system has an infiltration system, so the water will be pre-treated before it gets into that infiltration system as required by the stormwater management standards.
Correct. But the other side of the coin is, where's the rest of the snow going? And that's what I don't see on the, and this is probably the wrong map to have up on the screen share, but can you use this map and just tell me where the storage areas are going to be?
Sure. Scott, do you have an idea which plan?
Give me 1 second. Let me see if I can flip through and find.
Let's see. It's not that one. It's not that one. Not that one, certainly. Stop bars. Station trench. I'm not sure if it's in this plan set.
I do recall seeing it.
Yes,
but I don't see it in this plan set. It may have been a previous.
Steve, can you try
specifically to address this?
Go ahead, somebody.
Try sheet 4.
Sheet 4, okay. Let's go up to sheet 4. Let's see, this is, that's 5. Is this 4 here? Let me just check and see if I can see what sheet this is. This is sheet 4 here. Okay, I'm on sheet 4. Let me zoom out. I don't see snow storage areas on that sheet. Do you? Anybody?
I'm sorry, I may have thought I saw it on the wrong one.
Yeah, that's fine.
I do recall that there were all the snow storage is within the vicinity of the parking areas.
Yes, I recall the same thing, Scott. Somewhere, I believe there was some in here, and some in here, and maybe some in here. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, yes. So the intent was, to, if possible, get that to drain melt and then drain back through the stormwater system.
Right.
Nightstands.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
And Mr. Chairman, the apparently the O&M manual provides that only environmentally safe de-icing products will be used on the site.
All right, thank you. Because I did not have that in front of me.
How is that defined? Does the manual define what environmentally safe? It's very subject to opinion.
That was the question. Scott, I don't know if you can answer that. Did you hear Hans?
We can provide additional clarification of that.
Fine.
And then, of course, Mr. Chairman, we did have the question about who decides about, if it exceeds the safe storage of snow on site, the snow shall be removed and disposed of in a legal manner. That was a big question of mine. Who decides? And I think Hans actually talked about performance standards for that as well, didn't you?
Tuesday and Wednesday, so tomorrow we can do it.
Yeah.
For having fun.
Yeah, there was some concern that a snowstorm could end up with, 10 feet of piled snow somewhere.
Right. And what's the performance standard for snow piles? Who knows? Scott, any comment on that?
I think in this particular instance, there would be areas, if you've got too much snow stored in areas, it would provide like a sight distance issue with either pedestrians or traffic coming to and from the site. So I think that would be generally treated by the property management would decide if there was too much snow in the area, and then choose to haul that off site.
And what's a good way to incorporate that into an order of conditions? I'm thinking ahead.
We can give you some language for that.
Okay.
Yeah, we could work on that.
Good.
All right, Hans, I know you had specific questions, and you may want to track some of the questions and responses that you received from CEI.
I'm still, and I do apologize, I'm still trying to line these up a little bit. Some of them have been addressed or partially addressed.
Hans, if you could speak up, I'm having real trouble hearing you.
Sorry about that.
Much better. Thank you.
No, I'm just trying to figure out which aspects have been answered and addressed, and which ones are still. So I think that a lot of it will hopefully be addressed through the response regarding the hydrology study, and whether or not the culvert affects or what potential effects the culvert will have on flows during heavy rain events.
That's a good question, Hans. I spoke to Jim Burke today about the hydrology. He can speak at the next meeting about the details of it. But based upon this conversation, essentially, my understanding is that currently within that wetland system, in a 100-year storm event, the water ponding would rise about 3 inches or so. He did the calcs again based upon installation of the culvert. It would raise another, I think, 3 inches in the wetlands during a 100-year storm event. So it's minimal additional storage. All that storage would be kept on site, so it wouldn't result in any flooding to any neighboring properties, but it would be all contained within the wetland resource area. That's kind of the Reader's Digest version based upon my conversation with Jim Burke, who's unfortunately couldn't make it tonight, but he might be able to answer additional questions at the next meeting, and may be helpful after you get a chance to review his detailed analysis that we expect to have wrapped up and submitted to the Conservation Commission shortly.
Okay. Yeah, and if you have a chance to speak with him, I'd make sure that he's that he includes the specific reference to the abutting properties regarding to flood levels for the 100-year event.
Are you talking about the 699 Randolph?
I think it is 699.
Abutters in general.
Steve, if you can move that screen down so we can see Randolph Ave.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah.
669 here.
Right.
7-Eleven there. And there's a few houses in between.
Right. So last time, my memory is the commission pointed out that 669, sorry, I have the wrong number. I'm saying 699. 669 had submitted an ONI, and I know that Jim asked for those materials and got them from Kathy. So I know he's baked that into his thinking.
All right, good. That's important to us.
Right.
And if I can go backwards just for a minute, because I passed over something. I see there are a lot of comments suggesting that the limit of work should be surveyed onto the plan. Is that an issue for anyone?
I was one of the ones who made that comment, John. I think Hans made it as well, didn't you?
Yes, I know. I did. It's all over all the reports.
Right.
And I just didn't know if, from the applicant's perspective, there's any objection to that.
Right. So again, apologies for Jim being unavailable. So we really need to caucus with him before we can answer that.
Okay.
But we will get back to you.
And I apologize for bouncing, but I went right by something that I had here. There was a question of there'll be some dewatering issues during the construction of the road. And the question came up as to whether or not the dewatering should be removed to a place more distant from the place of the work, which would require pumping the water into some kind of a detention basin for removing the sedimentation. And I didn't know if you could respond to that. I saw that commented in a couple of different places. And that might be a Jim Burke situation.
Yeah. Scott, is that a Jim issue or a Scott issue?
I think it's mostly Jim issue, but we can make it very clear on the plans where the dewatering's going to be located, so that there's no question about that in the future during construction. I don't see an issue there at all.
Okay. All right. Well, just put that on your list of things to address, if you would, please. Hans, did you have any other questions?
No, I mean, it's, I do look forward to seeing what any revised wetland replication is proposed as, and appreciate the willingness to consolidate that. Again, I think most of the questions or concerns would remain to what the hydrology study or response is. And I think we can just go from there. The shoring question, I think we should be able to condition that to make sure that it's executed appropriately, which hopefully the contractor would do anyway. And then, yeah, the snow removal aspect, I think that's something that we need to, I'd say for the applicant, in the absence of us conditioning something, maybe I'd highly suggest trying to come up with a response that you think you can live with, as opposed to us conditioning something that someone else may object to in the future. In terms of dewatering, I think that will probably require, I would suggest a condition on how that's to be executed and a deliverable there prior to the start of construction from the contractor to make sure it's consistent with what the engineer is proposing. That's about it. The last comment I had was regarding this threshold of trying to stay under 5,000 square feet. I do understand that it triggers additional permits. However, that would give you a lot more flexibility in the design. I understand it would affect your time constraints, but no, it would. I think it would relieve a lot of headaches to take that 5,000 square foot threshold as a constraint and just consider what the appropriate design needs to be. But I leave that to the applicant to decide. So that's about all I have.
Oh, good. Jerry Burke, I can't see you, but I think you're there. Do you have any questions or comments? Maybe I don't see him because he's not there. I think he may have dropped off.
I'm sorry, John, I did hear you.
Oh, good, okay.
Can somebody give me for the lay person, the infiltration system? Let's back it up a little. How do they get clogged up? How often do they get clogged up? And how is it repaired? And what is the preventive maintenance system on this? Because I do have a lot of concern about storing snow on there. Also, will it in fact become part of the, will it melt into the infiltration system or the water treatment system? And does sand and debris, is the system susceptible to being clogged by all that?
Scott Morrison here. I'll answer as much as I can. So there'll be pre-treatment for all the stormwater before it gets to the infiltration system. There's a requirement for TSS removal before it gets into the system. There are inspection ports. So for instance, once it's online, potentially, 10 or 20 years from now, there's inspection ports. They can look in, determine if there's any issues with it. They can go in there and I believe jet it out and using a vac truck and some water jets to kind of clean that out to allow the capacity for the infiltration in there. So there is a mechanism for cleaning, so total suspended solids are removed before it gets to the infiltration system. And then an O&M plan that they'll go and do inspections and maintenance on that to maintain the infiltration for the site.
What does the pre-treatment entail?
I believe the pre-treatment would be deep sump catch basins and then some proprietary treatment prior to reaching the infiltration system.
And is there, Steve, is there any of that in these plans?
No, it's not on the plans yet.
Okay, thank you.
Just generally, Jerry, those proprietary treatments basically use centrifugal force to separate the water from the sediments. That's most of them use, they run the water around in a circle. And the sediments drop out and water stays. Would you agree with that, Scott?
Yes, and just for clarification, there is that, those are shown on the plans.
They are, okay. Oh, you're talking about it on the detail plans.
That's correct, yes, so it's on the details. So there'll be deep sump catch basins and then a proprietary treatment before it reaches the infiltration system.
Right, okay, thank you.
All right.
That's helpful. Yeah,
Hey.
somewhere.
Anything else, Jerry?
No, that's it for now. Thank you, John.
All right, Ingrid, I can't see you, but any questions or comments? Steve?
Here,
can you-
John.
Oh, good, there you are. I'm sorry, did you say you did have some questions or comments?
No.
No, you don't, okay, all right. And Arthur, I can't see you, but I think you're there somewhere.
I am, and want to respond to the consolidation of the wetland replication plan because approximately 50% of wetland replications fail within 3 to 5 years, and separating them out increases the chance of failure. Consolidation improves the chance of success And I liked what Scott said about buffer to protect the consolidated replication concept. That gives a greater chance of success. And also a necessary ingredient is the periodic inspection. And I think that I read in the documents prior to the meeting, which I think is a very positive feature as well. So it's on both the developer and it's on the Conservation Commission post-development to make sure that that replication area succeeds.
All right, thank you. Did I miss anyone? I can only see 4 pictures.
Mr. Chairman, it's Matt.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to mention something to Arthur's point. Often with areas this size, an extended period of monitoring to make sure that it grows and some backup plan for if it isn't taking for the replication area is written into the order. We've seen that before.
Beyond the usual 2 growing seasons.
Yeah, particularly for wetland replication, it can take some time. You know, depending on the source of the high soils and the plants, they can do great for a year if you have a nice rainy year, and even 2 years. But then if you're not just at the right spot, they're basically, he's correct, and that's why there's such a high level rate of failure, is because they're very sensitive. So you might want, as I've seen, as long as 5 years, a follow-up inspection, not necessarily holding the order that long, but requiring a follow-up inspection to make sure, and some type of guarantee. It doesn't have to be large for some wetland plants, but I've seen extended periods for those.
And Mr. Chairman, this is Steve Ibis. I have been involved with a whole bunch of them, and I play as environmental monitor in other locations and have been doing some of those. So ditto, Matt.
Thank you.
John, I'm sorry. I was just reviewing my notes. Last meeting, I asked Bob that there were certain revisions made by the applicant's engineer as a result of their initial report. And I asked that, and I'm not going to go through them all tonight, but I do ask for maybe a supplement. Which of the revisions made as a result of CEI's report were to be, that can somehow be considered significant or not significant? Those subsequent revisions by the applicant's engineer. Do you remember that, Bob Hartzell?
Generally, I think that's a pretty broad question. I think as we go down, the list of all the different design features, there are some places where they have provided more detail and simply responded. As we noted in our letter, there are a bunch of places where they did simply adequately address our comments. There are other places where there are some gaps that still remain. And just to give one example, we were just talking about, Matt's point about follow-up monitoring post-construction on wetland replication. We had suggested having some requirements there to, for example, go in and do an inventory on the woody plantings, document how many of them survived the first several growing seasons, what species are growing, and that way you've got some backup. You've got it in paper so you can know on any given growing season how many and what need to be replaced. That was kind of referred to indirectly in the response, but it's not actually included anywhere in their filing. So there are any number of things, from very small to somewhat more substantial, but I think we've got that fairly well documented in the letter. I mean, we could go through the whole thing if you'd like.
Hey, Bob, it's Matt. I think to add to that, I think the big picture outstanding things, the location of the replication area to be most effective. The snow storage was still kind of being batted around, and that potential flooding issue. However, 699 gets flooded now versus what will the condition be with the proposed work in place. I think those were the big picture one. I think they made a lot of changes as requested in terms of stormwater controls, particularly basically everything we asked for, they adequately addressed and changed the plan. So I think those 3 or 4 items and some clarification on the, what the shoring and how the utilities would go in, which I think has already been discussed tonight. I think those were the major issues.
Yeah, and I would say on the wetland replication side of things, if there is to be a relocation of the wetland and a consolidation, then obviously we're back to square one in terms of reviewing, what that looks like. So when and if that does happen, I'd like to see the contour shown, not just an outside polygon with spot grades. I'd actually like to see the side slopes and the base elevation, the full shooting match of everything that's going to be done for grading. I would add too, just in the interest of being thorough in our discussion here, is it possible, Steve, or whoever's moderating here, I think it's an easier thing to see that suggested wetland replication area on sheet 5 or any of the sheets that shows the property boundary on the northern and northeastern corner by 669 Randolph Ave?
Sure.
Yeah, that'll do right there. That's fine.
How about this one right here?
Yeah, if you were to zoom in a little bit on that corner that's closer to 669.
There you go. Right there. 69 is there.
Yeah, so that's perfect. So in general, what we're talking about is the portion of the wetland that goes from where you can see the 114 contour there, right?
Just right here.
More or less from there, perpendicular to the property line, following more or less the 114, and then dropping down to where the wetland line merges with the property boundary as you're going towards 669. It's that's about 7,000 square feet to work with. So again, and just in the interest of being complete, the reason that's good is because you've got the existing wetland there. Above it, it's more distant from the direct impacts of the proposed development and the buildings. It gives you the opportunity to all in one place. On the other side, it places a little more burden on the town's property to the north.
Mm-hmm.
What you're doing, you're actually, by building a replication there, you're giving up some of the forested buffer to the wetlands on that side, and you're making that new wetland fairly close to the town's property there. So it's just something to keep in mind in terms of keeping good controls on, potential encroachment or issues that may be happening that, seem to be happening now up close to that property line. So it's just something to keep in mind as you're thinking about that moving forward. Well, on balance, with all those things considered, I do think it's probably a good idea to move it over there. The upside seems to far outweigh any downside in my mind, but I just want to point that out.
Thank you, Bob, for pointing that out for us.
All right, any commissioners with additional questions? Hearing none, are there any abutters or members of the public that would like to ask a question or make a comment? That includes anybody on a phone line. Hearing none, it appears that at this juncture that we are awaiting Jim Burke's work, both on the hydrology area. And what was the second thing that he was going to provide?
Well, Mr. Chairman, we have 27 pages worth of responses to comments to put together here. So it's not just that piece. That is one piece, and we've made notes of the other things that have come up tonight, and we'll try to put the package together for you. I do have one question, if I may.
Of course.
Yes. So in the materials, we reviewed different scenarios for the crossing alternatives. And the applicant's proposed alternative, which it favored, was the box culvert crossing, which CEI concurred that it was a reasonable approach. My question was whether any of the commissioners had any questions or comments on the, I'll call it the crossing alternative issue, if I may.
Well, my quick reaction was, I'm not sure they said they favored it. They said that as between A, B, and C, they favored A and C. But you know.
Well, it says what it says, so the question is whether you have any questions.
What's that?
It says what it says, so the question is, whether the commissioners have any questions on the crossing issue. I just wanted to make sure we touch that base tonight.
Yes, I very definitely do, and it all ties back to what I asked for in the spring of 2014, and that's the hydrology study, because I'm still interested in the difference between the pier system and what I call the abutment or culvert system. So yes, the alternatives are going to be, for me, are going to be driven by the hydrology study.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions or responses to Brian's question? All right, so then hearing nothing from members of the public or abutters or otherwise, I think we're at a stage where we can continue this with the assent of the applicant until the August sitting. And by that time, we expect to, or let me ask you that, Brian, or perhaps Scott, when do you think you'll have responses to what you've received recently and the other issues that we've addressed today?
Yeah, so hard for me to answer that without talking to my team. So if I may, I can get you an email tomorrow on that.
Sure.
I would expect that we would try to, get it in, a week or two before. Whatever is possible, we will try to do.
Fair enough. Steve, do you know the date of the August meeting?
Yes, August 11th.
August 11th. All right. Well, that's certainly our target. We'd like to see it in advance so we can review it. And I know you'll do the best you can.
Yep, we will do that.
All right. Unless there's another comment or question with that, then with the assent of the applicant, we'll continue this until August 11th. Thank you all for that.
Yes. Thank you, Bob. Bob and Matt as well.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Everyone have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
We can move on to the agenda. I think next, number 5, request for a certificate of compliance at 1072 Brush Hill Road.
1072. 1072. Okay.
Do we have anybody appearing for that?
Not to my knowledge, John. I've been out to see the site. It looks very good. And do we have a plan? I'm looking for the plan.
Yes,
Did you see a plan?
yes. We had it in hard copy.
Okay, very good. I don't believe I have it in digital form here. In fact, oh, wait, I may have it. I may have it. Okay, let's just check. That's not it. One moment. Just give me another few seconds here. All right.
And this is the site where this was the better alternative than connecting
Yes, that's correct.
to a line. Yeah.
And I'm going to share the screen now. And can you see that?
Clearly.
Yes.
Can you?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thanks. Yep. The house was over to the bottom right-hand side of the screen. And we walked over to another, across the way. This was right where the big beech tree was.
Yes, yeah, I remember that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Here's the garage. Here's the house. This is where the beech tree was, and it's done very, very well. And it's growing in just fine.
And we have in our hands in the packet the submission by George Collins indicating that he's inspected the site and found it to be in substantial compliance with the approved plans, which is our trigger for considering a certificate of compliance. Are there any questions that anybody has? Are there any abutters or members of the public that have a question or would like to make a comment on this issue? So I suggest, hearing none, that we can proceed to issue the certificate of compliance based upon the letter from George Collins and the inspection by Steve Ivas. Is there a motion to issue the certificate of compliance?
So moved.
Thank you, Arthur. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All right. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Unanimous. So we can issue that certificate. Thank you very much. Next on the
John,
agenda.
can I ask you a question before I forget later on?
Yes.
While you're mentioning the issuance of the certificate. Do we individually post our virtual meetings, see Kathy for signing the appropriate paperwork? Is that?
No, that actually is a problem. I talked to her about that today, that we no longer have the added benefit of the police cadets, because apparently there were 3 police cadets and all 3 of them went to the State Police Training Academy because they had a new class come in. So as a consequence, we don't have that option anymore. So we have to make arrangements to, I guess, stop by the DPW, and if you just
That's what I was thinking. Make a caller in advance, make an appointment, and then sign.
Yes.
Okay.
Unless we have a site, if we have a site walk, we can do it at the site walk.
Great.
But I don't think we've got one coming to, we might. We might. So if we don't have a site walk, then Arthur, I think you're correct that we'll have to each individually stop by the DPW and sign these documents.
That's very helpful. Thank you. Sorry about that interruption.
Oh, no.
But I didn't want to forget to ask.
Okay, next is notice of intent at 15 Edward Avenue. And for those members of the public, we did attend a site walk, 2 weeks ago?
Yes.
And went out and inspected the property. It looked to be an appropriate project. The problem was that it was sort of informal drawings. So we asked that we get a professional engineer with a stamped plan to submit that with designated distances from the wetlands. And I think that the homeowner has done that. Am I correct, Steve?
Yes. Do you see it on your screen?
I do indeed.
Okay. Yes, they have.
I looked at it before. It looks appropriate to me. And having inspected the site, it appears to be an appropriate plan with our usual conditions of keeping any equipment used out of the buffer zone overnight or for any refueling purposes, and to have proper sedimentation controls in place. I actually don't see that on the plan, but I think we could make that part of our order of conditions.
Yes, they're not on the plan, John, and we certainly can make it part of the order.
All right. And also for the public's benefit, when we were at the homeowner's site, we asked and he responded that this is a closed filtration system with cartridges so that there'll be no discharge of the pool water, which often has, residual chlorine or bromide rather, or something. So this is a closed system, so that should not be an issue. And he did present the manufacturer's name, and I think he gave us some specs, or at least he showed us some.
Yes, he did.
So I'm satisfied that this is an appropriate application to issue an order of conditions. But before we do anything, I invite any questions, comments, and others. I forget who was there. I know Wendy was there, and Ingrid, you were there.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
Actually, I was not able to attend.
Right. So, no other questions? Steve, do you have any comments on this?
No, not at all. In fact, the measurement from the stream to the the back lot line there is very close to what you and I both measured when we were on site. So
Oh,
that's a very good thing. That's a
It
very
was
good
awfully
thing.
close.
Yes, exactly. I just wanted to make that point that, you know, at least it confirms what we saw in the field.
Right. And just so that if anybody is concerned with a 25-foot non-disturbance zone, if you measure on the left-hand corner of the pool patio, the paved area, that I can't read it on this, but on the plan that I have here at the house, I think it says like 18 feet or something.
Maybe 19 and a half. 19 and a half.
19 and a half, but that's not that's not where the 25 foot is measured from.
Right. It's this area.
So you have to add those two together so it is sufficiently away from the wetland resource.
Yes.
Any other comments or questions or suggestions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the order of conditions for 15 Edward Avenue with the stipulation that we add or that the homeowner adds the sedimentation and erosion control line, and we have our usual standard requirement that there'll be no storage of gas-fired or diesel powered equipment, and there'll be no refueling within our buffer zone.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank
Moving
you,
on.
everybody. Appreciate it.
Good. Moving on to 23 Hillcroft Road. That also is a notice of intent, and this also is a place that we visited at a site visit 2 weeks ago. And at the time, everything seemed to be in order. I think we had adequate plans from the stamped engineer at the time. And I don't have any questions, but some of the other commissioners might. Anything?
None from me.
Ingrid, I think you were there. Ingrid, there we are.
Yep. Yes.
All right. And everything seems to be, it's outside of our 25-foot zone because we measured from essentially the toe of slope.
Yes.
And the proposed addition is outside of the 25-foot non-disturbance zone. Any questions from commissioners? Are there any abutters that have a comment or ask a question that they would like? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to issue the order of conditions with our usual, what I call boilerplate provisions, that is no storage of gas or diesel powered engines and no refueling within our buffer zone. And with that, entertain a motion to issue the order of conditions. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
All right, is there a second to the motion?
Second.
All right, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is notice of intent 175 Milton Street. I believe by email today, there was a request that this be continued until the August hearing, to which we assented. So that will be on August 11th. Next on the agenda is request for determination of applicability 152 Robin Street. Steve, can you get us up to speed? This was a question that we've all, I think everybody here has been there. And this is the garden.
Yes, that's correct.
The families like plant, and it seemed to be appropriate. We just wanted them to move it 25 feet from the top of bank.
Right, and they moved it 25 feet from the top of bank at B19. And I looked at it today and I said to Mr. Howe, I believe it is, guess what? 25 feet from B19 doesn't help with us. It's help with us with B18. So I said, have the surveyor move it as an offset to the entire stream and or flags. And he did not, could not do it for tonight, but he promised that he would. And so what I said was, maybe I can suggest that the commission take it up as a conditional if they do have a 25-foot distance between the flags and the garden, every flag in the garden, then we would issue.
Did you check your email? Because I thought I got an email about 4:30 today, and I thought
That's correct. That was from me, from him, saying the same thing. He
Oh,
needs
but I thought he had replaced.
He had created another plan, but only one of the flags was 25 feet away.
Oh, okay.
Okay? They all have to be 25 feet away.
Indeed, yes. I got you.
Okay? That's all. I said, just take an offset and then make the garden the offset, you know, at each one of the flags. So he promised he would do that. So, you know, the commission could take a vote to issue the negative RDA, or determination of applicability, once the plan is correct.
I agree with that. And we've all been there at least twice. And I think it's a grand idea to have a garden there. It fits within resource protection. I think it enhances the property as long as it's 25 feet away. Oh, and by the way, in addition, we did talk to them about not planting lawn there, but rather in that 25-foot strip between top of bank and the garden, which is tilled, they agreed to put in wildflower seed
And shrubs.
So that it'll essentially be in its natural state. They asked if they could mow it, and I think we said, I'm sure Steve said you could do it once a year.
Yes.
So it's essentially going to be a natural buffer between the garden and the stream, all of which makes pretty good sense to me. So I would suggest that we issue a negative determination conditioned upon the plan with the all flags 25 feet from the top of bank. Any comments, questions, thoughts, suggestions? Are there abutters or members of the public that have a question or a comment? Hearing none, is there a motion to issue a negative determination of applicability at 152 Robbins Street with those conditions as stated?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Ingrid. And remember, this is conditional upon receipt of the stamped plan with the flags moved to the appropriate places. Having stated that, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
None opposed, unanimous. Thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Next on the agenda is 175 Governor Stoughton Lane. I'll disappear for a while because I think we're going to go back and talk about the proposed tree policy.
Not in this one. The tree policy is next. Governor Stoughton Lane is on its own.
What about Bradley Road?
Oh, I'm sorry, 137 Bradley.
I jumped Bradley Road, but what I was trying to do was skip over 175 Governor, and in fact, I skipped over 137 Bradley Road.
Okay.
That is next on the list. I apologize.
Okay.
Steve, can you bring us up to date on Bradley Road?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Let me just show you one of the photographs where I was there on May 4th. And I'll show you what I found on May 4th. Can you see that?
No.
Okay.
I've got it in my hand, but although this one says July 5 is the picture.
No, hang on a second. We're working on it. Look at the photograph here, and then
I don't see anything.
Get back to you folks.
Did you Mike may have given over the control of your screen share to Scott Morrison or whoever.
No, I had it at one time here. I had it.
I know you had it earlier.
Right, and I had it again. I had it again to just show you the other things there. Didn't you see?
Yeah, no, he still has it.
Yeah. But I'm playing around with the screen and I'm just lost on the screen here. give me another. No, that's not it. Why is, that's not it. That's not it. Boy,
Do we need it?
hang on. Well, yeah, it would be good to see what I'm looking at. Okay. Let me just close it out and then try to get back in. All right. All right. Where are you all? Huh. Well, let me bring you up to speed by text, at least by talking. On May 4th, I came to the site and found some heavy equipment had been working along a hillside directly adjacent to the wetland that is down at the bottom of the slope next to Curry College. The field there, there's a Curry College field.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's not it. And there was some silt fence at the bottom of the slope as well, and there was some root masses behind the silt fence, between the silt fence and the Curry field. When I went back yesterday, the silt fence was still in place. There was just about a couple of cubic yards of material, soil, stones, dross, weeds, behind the silt fence, again, between the silt fence and the toe of slope of the wetland. And the slope on the very steep driveway section to the west. The driveway is a circular driveway, or semicircular driveway that has two exits to Bradley Road. The westerly one had a very steep slope next to it. The slope is not that steep any longer, and it's been covered with, he says, 4 inches of soil, of loam. It wasn't growing very well. The gentleman, I spoke to the gentleman yesterday, and he said, send me the information. He had not gotten the EO yet. Evidently, he has gotten it today, but sent an email that I forwarded on to all of you earlier this evening. And that's where I'll stop for a moment. And I'm still trying to find that.
Steve, let me ask you this. The photos that we have in the packet are timestamped 7/5/20.
Right.
Was that when you were there, the 5th of July?
No, that's not 7/5. My photos are all timestamped the European method.
So it's May 7th.
May 7th.
That's what I
And
thought.
I took some more photos today, which I have for you, but obviously I can't even see the rest of the people on the screen. Frankly, I've lost pretty much most of the Zoom people and the Zoom screen here for some reason. Okay. I do have recent photos. Wait a second. There's Arthur. I have some recent photos, but I have not been able to bring them up just yet. It's very frustrating. In fact, I only see Arthur now on the screen. So,
Steve, do you only see one person on the screen?
That's correct.
Can you hit escape?
Thank you, Michael. I just hit escape. It did not.
If you go towards Arthur's picture.
Okay. Now James's picture. Oh, here we go.
Yep. So you should, towards the top, you'll see
okay.
To switch the view.
Yep. I just switched the view there. Thank you very much. That's very helpful, Michael. And now let me see if I can get back to the photograph that I want to show. Okay. Thank you very kindly. And the photograph should be, let's just see. This is the one. There we go. There's one of the photographs. That's an older one, though. Sorry. None. Right with you. At least it's
We're
working.
still not seeing the screen.
You still
You
don't
need
Sorry?
to start a new. You need to start a new screen share.
Right, I understand. So how do I, let me see, I go, oh, there we go. There we go. How's that? Do people see that?
All right, yes, yes, sir.
Okay, so the silt fence is on the left-hand side. The formerly steep slope is on the right-hand side. It's not so steep, but it's not very vegetated. And that's all I have to say about that right there.
But the tree doesn't seem to be covered up.
This
does it?
tree?
Yeah.
No. This tree wasn't the problem. There were tree roots on the other side of the silt fence that have been taken away, obviously.
All right.
Yeah. That's
Now,
all.
they have been taken away because what we're looking at in the May photographs, there was a lot of debris there. Has that been removed?
Yes, it has, except for a small pile of debris in back of the silt fence. Yes. All that debris was up in this area, John, the May photographs, okay? It was all up in here, between the driveway and the road, and then the silt fence. That was where all that debris was.
All right. Do you know, in his email today, the homeowner says, also, I just installed a new septic system 2 weeks ago at the end of June. All debris was also removed. It's off-site, I think he meant to say.
Right.
Do you know where the septic system went? I mean,
Yes, the septic system was, if the driveway is a semicircle, it was inside the semicircle between the driveway and the street.
All right. And this is off to the, coming in off of Bradley Road, this is off to the left?
That's, this property is off to the left. That's correct. This property is on the left-hand side of Bradley Road. And coming in off the Bradley Road, the septic system would be off to the right. So it would be to the right of the photograph here.
So what are we looking at? Is this new fill?
This is new fill, 4 inches of new fill that was put down and smooth. The grade has been changed. This form up between the tree and the driveway was formerly a very steep grade in this area up in here. That's all.
All right. It looks like there's a tree off to the right. Is that the roots been covered in that? Right where your cursor.
Yeah, there's a tree right there, and I'm sorry, I did not take a look directly at that tree today, or yesterday when I was there, sorry.
And did the homeowner say that he was planting this, or how is he going to hold the slope?
He and I didn't talk very long, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay. All right. Well, is it where? I mean, I can see the photograph plan. What are our remedies? First of all, I'm not. He's clearly within the jurisdiction from the earlier photographs.
Yes.
But it appears that he's done some grading. Did you have a sense as to what the cubic yard amount of fill is? Because I know we do have a fill bylaw.
Gee, I'm sorry, I don't. I could probably calculate it based on the area, but I'd have to go back and then measure.
All right. Well, if we determine that he did something in violation of the regs or the rules, what would the remedy be?
To me,
yeah,
the remedy would be let's get this grassed up before everything goes to heck. Can you see that? That's on my screen now.
Yes, you can.
That's the pile of material.
Right. Well, which is left over from which we saw in May, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Is that behind the silt fence?
That's correct. Yes, it's between the silt fence and the resource, which is at the upper left-hand corner. Okay. So that needs to be taken out.
So that needs to be taken out, stabilized properly.
Exactly. And then the rest of it needs to be stabilized.
And then, yeah, the rest stabilized or recommend hydroseed or some other method.
Exactly. It does not look like it was hydroseed. I think it was just left.
Well, it sounds like a pretty simple solution then. And it also sounds like he shouldn't care, or he should applaud our efforts to return this to its more natural state, so that if he were to remove the debris and whether it's hydroseed or some other mechanism for plantings that would hold the slope as it currently is, would that be sufficient for everybody?
It would be for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Arthur, Hans,
I agree.
I have no objection.
Ingrid? Gary?
Agree.
No objection from me.
All right. So Steve, can you talk to him and just say, get the debris out of there and get some planting done quickly so you can hold the slope so there's no erosion and sedimentation into the wetlands?
Yes.
All right, good. And then we can probably hold the enforcement order. I don't think it's going to do anything to him. And then when we get it planted, we can take another look and before we release the enforcement order, let's see if we can get some positive action from the homeowner.
Indeed.
Arthur?
John, by planting, we're talking about grasses.
Yes.
And this is a really tough time of the year.
And
July,
it
August.
is a drought too. You'd have to water
Yeah.
this kind of thing.
The best time to plant would be
In the fall.
in the fall, September. Middle of September is the best time. So maybe I can speak with him about that.
Does he need anything besides the silt fence to hold that slope?
Yeah, you can use a tackifier on that.
Yes.
So it's kind of like hydroseed without the seed.
Right.
Okay.
I can certainly suggest that to him. Otherwise, he's going to have some, the slope will be moving down toward the silt fence.
Right, which is not going to be good for anybody.
Right. Exactly.
All right. So why don't we just, there's nothing to be done. I don't think it's appropriate for a fine of the enforcement order. And as long as he takes corrective action, then we'll be happy. Why don't we put it on the agenda for August and you can report back as to whatever progress. Keeping in mind that as Ingrid points out that, this is probably not a good planting time.
Right. Will do.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, now it takes us to 175 Governor Stoughton Lane. And then to the proposed tree policy.
Right.
So I can go get a cup of coffee or something and come back periodically. All right?
Sure.
All right. If I get lost, I'm on my cell phone. Somebody can call me to tell me to come back in the room. Thanks all.
Oh. 65 Milton Lane.
So, Arthur, in John's absence, do you want to take the lead or do you want me to?
I would not be able to.
Okay. So I guess the issue that's been open has been regarding the lights at the entrance to the site.
On Liberty Road.
Yep. And the concern is that the lights, those in particular being are not downward facing. And so there is quite a bit of light bleed, or we understand the applicant has taken some measures to try and to rectify, at least temporarily, the condition there. But I think the hope is that we get our response ultimately to ensure that they, if it's reasonable to replace those with downward facing lights. Do we have anyone here from the applicant side?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
This is Mark Mastriani from Pulte Homes. Good evening. So, I'm here. I'm ready, willing, and able to have a fruitful and very worthy discussion with the commission. Tonight's the first night that I'm here, and I'm willing to have additional meetings as well, just to, continue to make sure that we work together. As you all know, me and my company, we've been working together for a long time. I have a lot of respect for the work you all do, and I have a lot of respect for all of the work that you all have put into this community, getting it where it is. And so, I'm here. I'm really kind of confused and not really quite sure what the concern is, and which lights, and whether it's aesthetics or if it's performance or if it's maintenance, and which lights. But I'm happy to work, to be here and to understand and to see where we go.
Sure.
So that's my, sort of my start here, just to, to give you the right, hopefully we're all in the right frame of, just minds.
Sure. Yep. So unfortunately, it wasn't me that led the discussion on this. This was Judith, but she isn't able to attend. But the general crux of the issue, I guess, is that the lights, while they're architecturally and they're very nice looking lighting fixtures, I believe there was a condition either in one of the approvals, and again, I have to defer to Judith to what she did have the specifics on this, but that the requirement was that the lighting was dark sky or downward facing, dark sky compliant, and the lights that were installed, unfortunately, were not. There is a significant amount of light bleed laterally on either side, and as I said, it's clear that there's been attempts to rectify it, but my concern is that I don't know if those type of lights can in fact be modified to be dark sky compliant.
Right. Steve, do you have the pictures that I had emailed to you?
Yes, I do have the pictures. I'm trying to get to them now.
And so we do recognize that there has been, it's been an error, I believe, on both sides, when the town, by approving the spec on those lights. So,
could I shed some light on?
Yep.
So, and I think
can you see it?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what's currently installed.
Yep.
So, so I think you've all heard this before from either Mike Rosati or other members of our team out in the field. But, I'll just repeat it so that, we're all on the same page. So, because I heard, that there's been errors on both sides, but the real situation is that we proposed Pulte's standard, very attractive street light for this project. We submitted as part of our set of plans to the planning board. They and they had a black cap. They had the lighting source in the cap. They point down. They're very attractive. And the planning board and the town DPW and engineer specifically told us not to use those lights and mandated and told us to use the Milton lights, which were the lights that were recently installed, back then on Fletcher Steel Way. So we went out to Fletcher Steel Way, we looked at the lights, and then John Thompson and Jack Calabro sent us the specs of the lights, and we put those lights on our plan. We knew they were not dark sky compliant because they were acorn lights, but the town told us that those were the town of Milton lights.
Okay.
The roads to be accepted by the town of Milton, and those were the town of Milton lights that they wanted for this program. So, so we put them on the plan. And so I guess, so I think that's a lot of kind of the resistance, that we may give, because
Okay. That makes sense.
that seems really, really
Yep.
I always try to do the right thing, and my company always tries to do the right thing, when we can. But this just doesn't feel right. However, so
I do
I
understand what you're saying.
pictures to Steve, because we had asked our contractor to go out there and to paint the caps and to paint some shields. Well, let me back up. So we went back to the manufacturer of these lights, of the light fixtures, and they many times, and they said absolutely they are not customizable. There were no shields and there were no cap attachments that we could add to these lights. So we asked those questions and we were told no. And we asked numerous times because, like you said, this has been going on a little while. However, then we had our contractor we asked him to paint the back side of the lights and the tops of the lights very nicely. And the first time he did it, he didn't do a very good job, and it was just not what we wanted. And Steve, I don't know if there's some other lights too, but there was some other as well.
Yeah, the close-ups you're talking about?
Yeah, the close-ups. So we went back to him and said, no, that's not what we wanted. We want a nice, crisp, line cap, painted black, and the lights that were at the entry, and the one that's at the DCR property line is like 200 feet in, and still, before you get to any homes. And we had him put a cap on the side of that one as well. And, to me, that was, a really good step for our company to take to try to work with the lights that we were told to install, and to try to understand the concerns of the commission and your goals, so that we would be working together and arrive at a product that that works. So that picture there that Steve put up, thank you, Steve. That looks dynamite to me. Honestly, I think they did a really, really good job. And that black paint there, blocks the light intrusion from spilling up and shines it back down. So anyways, I think I just wanted to kind of reiterate some of those points you already may have known. But I was at the good news is that I was here for all of the the planning board meetings and the commission meetings, and so when I'm speaking, it's the reality of what happened, and not it's very accurate.
Okay.
And it's unfortunate the way it happened. And I hope we learn from this, and that maybe the town learns from this, moving forward with the specific streetlights. But I don't know. So I don't know where we go from here, but I'm certainly appreciate the working relationship that we all have.
I do understand what you're saying, and I do appreciate we do appreciate the additional information. I don't think most of us were aware of the direction you may have received from other boards or departments on the specifications and the lights, and thank you for clarifying that. I think maybe, and feel free, any other commission members to opine on this. Maybe our next step would be to get some communication with the planning board and the engineering department to get further clarification on that, and maybe we reach out to Judith and make sure that she has she's aware of the information, and if she is still requesting that we push forward to further refine or rectify the lighting condition there, or if the changes so far can be considered acceptable.
And Mark, this is what you're proposing to address the issue?
Yes, sir.
So yeah, that being said, I mean, clearly it isn't dark sky compliant, which you acknowledge, but you've also provided the reasons why or how it got to be this way. So yeah, again, my suggestion would be to have discussion with some individuals from the planning board as well as the engineer, verify that that is the request that was made, and just reconvene with Judith to see if the actions taken so far are sufficient based on the circumstances now that they're known, or if there's other action that needs to be taken.
I agree with you, Hans. I think we'll put this off till the next meeting.
Is that acceptable, Mark?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure.
Okay. And like
just
I said, we
for-
do appreciate the efforts to try and correct this.
Yeah, we're not going anywhere. You know,
And for everybody's information, we better get to John Thompson soon. His last day is Friday.
Yep.
Hans, a question, please.
Sure.
Several of us saw the lighting months ago when Judith raised this matter. Has anybody had an opportunity to see the lighting since this intervention has been made?
Yeah, I live on the Parkway, so I see it a lot. So yeah, the backside's been painted and the top. So it's, I mean, you're taking clear efforts to try and reduce that spill as much as possible. It's just the design of the light fixture itself that won't face downward. I mean, it's just so. But you know, it's clear that there has been efforts to try and reduce that light bleed as much as possible.
So there is mitigation.
Yes, I mean, it doesn't fix it. It can't be dark sky compliant, but it's
right.
It's as close as it can get, I think, using the same light fixture. Let me know. Yeah.
Is it the two lights at the intersection with Unquity Road that's causing the biggest concern, or is it the?
I think Judith received some initial some complaints from neighbors or something like that, that there was a lot of light coming as you're driving through. I'm sure it's been reduced over time, but you know, it's still, as you come around the corner, it is fairly bright as you drive up to it, as you come around that bend. So I think that's what initially prompted the discussion.
Right, and it's the lights that are closest to the reservation.
Yeah, they're actually in the reservation.
Right.
The
wildlife is a concern.
Right. Here's the proposal. You could actually half the amount of lighting by just shutting one of them off. Just saying. Just saying.
So like I said, I think we'll follow up with planning and hopefully we can catch John before he skips out across the to the next city over.
Right.
And then hopefully we'll be able to revisit this before the next hearing.
Yeah, that sounds fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, no problem, Steve. Anytime.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll wait to hear back from you all.
Yep. Yep. Any objection from any other member?
No, but a quick follow-up question to Steve's comment. Steve, was that a grain of salt, or were you offering an alternative suggestion about having only one of them operational to see what the difference is?
Yeah, it makes sense to just try it and
Yeah.
see whether it decreases the functionality of a light at that location. Mark, this is just for your, thought as well.
Yeah.
And it's pretty easy to open the bottom of the light fixture and pull a wire. That's one of the easiest things we can do.
Good.
Just suggestion.
We could absolutely, so just, thinking that out, I could absolutely do that very easily, and to try to solve or resolve or, fix one problem, but just, we all should know or be aware that as soon as we do that, we would then have another problem, which is, all of the residents that live there that, have been enjoying the two lights at the entrance and perceive it to be necessary for safety.
Right.
They're going to be screaming about safety and lighting, and then so it's just, you saw one problem, and then we'll have another. So, whatever we do, and if we do, whatever we do, we just got to be mindful of that.
Right. Well, that's a priority for me. That's why I was asking Steve whether he was ground or solid or serious about that. Because we wouldn't want to put anybody at risk. Human safety is paramount.
I would agree with that, Arthur. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Hopefully we'll have a follow-up for you later this week.
Okay. Thank you all.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Have a good night.
You too. Thanks, Mark. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, how do we get John back?
Oh, no, we call him. Does somebody have his number on a cell phone?
Yeah, I was.
Okay, while I'm finding the proposed tree policy. Okay. Here we go.
I have two numbers. One is 3900 and one is 0380.
3900 sounds like a work number.
It's probably not his cell.
Right.
I just sent him a text, 1706.
Yep, that's what I have too.
Hans, has Judith weighed in? I know this is kind of like one of her expertise and her interest. Have you had any discussion with her about it?
About the tree?
Yeah, the tree policy proposal.
I have not. Unfortunately, I have not.
Yeah.
What was the question?
Has Judith weighed in at all? I know that this is something that's, at least I'm left with the impression that it's kind of very important to her. And I guess what I'm saying is that if she's going to be at the next meeting, maybe we should put it off. But if we're ready to discuss it. And I was asking Hans if he has heard from her at all.
I communicate with her, yes. I got an email yesterday. I did not talk to her yesterday. But she gave me a heads up that she would not be present for tonight's meeting. And so I just, wished her well. And I don't know whether or not she'll be available for the next meeting or not, Jerry.
Oh, okay.
But you are correct. It is near and dear to her heart. So we could probably start the discussion. It's not as if we have to vote on something tonight, and then we could reach out, not with a quorum, but just to get her view as sort of a subcommittee. And she could express her views on this, because I have not spoken to her about this. I've talked to her a couple of times in the last 2 weeks. So why don't we start on this? And by the way, just in terms of background, for a bylaw, you have to have the approval of the town meeting. But for a regulation, it's our vote and then the approval by the select board, if they see fit to approve it to become a regulation.
A policy.
And I think it's probably a good idea to make we always talk about our uniform standards. And it's probably a good idea to sort of elevate those performance standards into a regulation. I think Hans is a very good idea. Because sometimes we ask ourselves, is it 3-inch caliper or is it 3.5-inch caliper? And when we take a survey at a site, we want to know how many trees are being taken down. The question always becomes, well, do we mark all the trees over 3 inches, 4 inches, 5 inches? What is our standard? And I think sometimes we've had a lack of uniformity in terms of the caliper, that it has to be of a certain caliber. So I think it's great to have this put out in writing. In fact, somebody chastised us on not having it in writing. It was Mr. Jack Dolly from the Walcott Estates and the Carberry Estates. Said it's not in writing, but it may not be writing, but it's been pretty consistent for 3 decades. So do you want to walk us through this, Hans, in terms of
Sure. So,
where we are?
yeah, it's, it again, it gives the general purpose of the tree replacement policy. There's always the question about jurisdiction and whether it's appropriate or whether it's necessary for a property owner to have to come before us for touching any tree within the buffer. And so I've seen a lot of other commissions do this just to provide this sort of clarification. And, just with the understanding that depending on the manner in which a tree is removed can have a significant effect on how much damage there is in fact to the environment. Someone says we're just taking down trees, that there's a pretty wide range of effects that could occur as a result. Whether it involves stump grinding removal, size of the tree, and then also what sort of mitigation may be appropriate. Some of this is language that I've taken from other commissions that have similar policies. I believe part of it came from the towns of Weston and Needham. And then further down is the, when is where we get into the part that clarifies things, hopefully pretty well for applicants, where they can have a precise measurement of DBH and so they can provide the mitigation as part of their application. We can just, this is how this works. It gives the options for the type of either deciduous, evergreen, shrubs, and so it gives different options in height. And so I figured that that variability would give options for various configurations for, property type, and to give as many options as possible. I mean, I know that we've been trending towards allowing for shrub mitigation as opposed to replacement in kind of trees. The one important thing is where we're dealing with the trees that are over 2 feet, 24 inches DBH and greater. There's significant biomass that's associated with those sort of trees. I think the value there is higher, and I think it should. It seems appropriate that would require a bit more mitigation than taking down a tree that's 10 or 15 years old.
Hans, can I stop you for a second and ask, what do you mean by linear feet of the tree to be removed?
That's where that if you go to that last page.
The last page? Okay.
Yeah. Right here.
Yep.
So measure the height of the tree.
Right.
So the linear feet, go back up to the description. So
Linear feet.
shall replace in kind by tree shrubs combination of the equivalent in linear footage. So if it's a shrub, 2 feet plus 2 feet plus 2 feet plus 2 feet, whatever it takes to get to.
Oh, you're talking about the linear height of the tree.
Yes.
Oh, okay, because that's unclear to me at least.
Yeah, I had the same confusion.
Okay.
So thanks for asking that.
Yeah.
Sure.
So it's my intent was to account for to the best approximate biomass of the tree.
Sure.
Obviously, we won't be able to account for the branch spread, but at least for the length of the trunk.
Oh, yeah.
If there's any way to clarify that, I welcome any input.
Yeah, I just say the height, tree height, and here's an example of how to estimate it. I would
Yeah.
just turn it to the height of the tree to be removed. That's all. In feet. That's all.
Yep. Okay.
That'd be great. We used to do the same thing in Boy Scouts. This is right in the Boy Scout manual of years ago.
Maybe that's where I stole the detail from.
Good.
There you go. There you go. No, it's the right way to do it. Unless you have a clinometer, of course, in your back pocket.
And then, I put in language for verification of that. And then this part down here, in the event replacement plantings are infeasible due to site constraints, I tried to formalize the in lieu fee type of mitigation, but I was relying on perhaps some input from John in that highlighted section on what's appropriate for providing the monetary calculation.
Yeah, we have bounced a bit on that, but it's generally about between 400 and 500. That's a combination of the cost of the tree and the cost of planting.
Yep.
Because I think in combination, it may be $500. If you're talking about like a 2.5-inch caliper tree, and that might be between $300 and $350 to buy, and then around $100 to $150 to plant. That was sort of it's based on estimates, but the estimates change over time and also depending on who you're talking to.
And so,
We should come up with a consistent one.
and maybe we can, that's something that someone can try to formalize a bit better. Maybe it's something that do we have a tree warden?
Yes, we do.
Maybe they can provide some input on that cost. Something that we can reference over time to be updated periodically.
Well, DPW received a grant of $43,000, 3 years ago? And that's when the Shade Tree Advisory Committee came to us and appeared before the commission and spoke, and they were asking us for a donation at the time, but they didn't really have the financial backup as to what they needed it for. And at the time, they had this grant to the DPW that was going to fund trees. So that kind of gets stalled, and they never really get back to us on that. And I think primarily the reason was that they had money in the till, so to speak. But the DPW probably knows exactly what it if they have to go out and buy street lawn trees.
Yep.
They know what it costs, and I'm sure they can allocate the labor and figure it out. And I think in the past, that's ballpark where we got it from.
Okay. So maybe, yeah, we can.
Kathy
insert the
could run that.
cost.
Kathy Bowen could run that to ground easily, I think.
Okay.
So I will talk to her tomorrow on that one.
Yeah. And then the last piece that's highlighted there is that if there is, if it's a legitimate hazard tree and involves, there's a safety issue, then, then.
I don't want to overcomplicate it by trying to get somebody, having to hire an arborist to say, oh, the tree is diseased and it's probably going to fall down. But
isn't that what they kind of have to do anyway?
The danger is that people use safety all the time.
Yep.
You could have a vibrant tree, the healthiest tree in America, and if somebody wants to remove it, they say, "Oh, it looks tough to me. It's going to fall down and kill my kids." That's the public safety. I call it the public safety ruse. But there should be some way to have some objective analysis as to whether or not the tree is truly dead or truly a danger.
Yeah, and that's again why I left that highlighted, because I wasn't 100% comfortable with writing that the way it was. I can do a little bit more research and see if anyone else has, any other towns have had better direction on how they address danger trees.
Yeah, I think that's going to be important. Steve, you've had a lot of calls in the past about some. I know there was one on Hillcroft that we went down to visit 3 or 4 months ago.
Yes.
So, oh, the tree is old and dead, and they were 100% right. And if you just look at it and you say, "Yep, that tree's dead."
Exactly.
Fall down. But there are other ones that fall into the gray area, and then some of them are just plain healthy.
Yep.
Yep.
And somebody wants to remove them. So there's got to be some, Hans, you're right, there's got to be some objective criteria that we utilize. And I don't want people to have to go through the expense of hiring an arborist to say yay or nay.
Okay.
But we could have some mechanism for addressing those trees that fall into the gray zone in between clearly dead and clearly healthy. So yeah, Hans, if you could pursue that with some of the other towns, and Branch Lane, I think, is still the tree warden for the town of Milton. He may know, and I know Kathy knows him, and Arthur, you know him too, right?
Yes.
Do you want to ask him if he could help us out on this as to how he makes the determination, if he does, or how the DPW makes the determination as to when a tree should come down and when it shouldn't, due to public safety?
I'd be happy to.
That'd be good.
Do you want him to come to a meeting or?
No, you can just talk to him. I mean, if he wants to, sure.
Sure. If he asks.
We'd never discourage that.
Right, okay.
It would be great to get his insight into it.
All right, so I'll give Branch a call and talk with him and.
All right, and Hans, whatever you can find out from other towns would be super.
Okay.
And I'll ask Kathy about the DPW cost factor.
Excellent.
Jerry, any other ideas as to how to move this along?
No, I think we're getting close. So,
All right, so we can report back maybe informally before the next meeting, but then we can put it on the agenda to address formally at the next meeting on August 11th. Agreed?
Yeah.
Yes.
Ingrid, any?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ingrid, I can't see you, therefore. Where are you hiding?
Yeah, I mean, I don't, John, I don't know if we can come up with any, hard and fast, black and white, dead or dying versus healthy without an arborist. Hans, I'd be interested to see how other towns deal with that. Certain trees are, prone to certain diseases, and people like Woolly Gel did in hemlock, but it's completely manageable. So people can play it either way if they want to get rid of a tree. That's a tough one. So I'd be interested to hear how other towns are handling that issue as well.
Steve, would the MACC have any data on that?
I was thinking about Woodlands Trust as well, John.
Yeah, you're right.
Wildlands Trust, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, to answer the question, John, I don't know whether MACC would have
I
any.
will say that at the last MACC meeting, I was approached by a few of the MACC leadership asking how we came up with our tree policy, and they were very interested. I told them I'd get back to them, but so
Diplomatic.
yeah. Yeah.
There are a lot of towns that have tree policies in the state. I've got a list of them, and in fact, I've got a collection of them in a file and on the hard drive somewhere. I spent a little time back a couple months ago just checking it out, and they run from 1 page to 100 pages. No kidding.
I favor the one-page approach.
Right. So do I. So do I.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I tried to do.
Right.
But again,
right.
And so if this is overly complicated, feel
No.
free to tell me if it is.
I don't think it is. I don't think.
As written, no, I think this is great.
No.
This is the right length.
Okay.
It's readable and understandable.
Okay.
I agree entirely.
All right. All right, so we'll discuss with less than a quorum, if we can compare notes, and then report formally at our next meeting on August 11th.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right, and I'll talk to Judith in the meantime as well to get her take on this. All right. Anything else on the tree policy or any other additional business?
Couple of things on additional business, if you wouldn't mind.
Yep.
First is just a note to tell you that 1040 Hillside Street at the Seward pumping station.
Yeah.
They've cut the trees down there. Okay, so that project has begun. Secondly, what Wendy reported out at last month's meeting, some dumping at 60 Winthrop Street, right along the Pine Tree Brook banks, is going to be cleaned up at the gentleman who lives at 60 Winthrop, which is a wonderful thing. Chase Berkeley and I both talked with him in the past week or so. And thirdly, I've been invited on Friday morning, should anybody be interested, at 10 o'clock to go out to Harlan Street where Pine Tree Brook crosses and to look with Chris Hirsch at possible tree species placement to shade the brook where the Phragmites treatment was made back last year. So he asked me if I wanted to do that with him, and I figured you folks would want me to do it. So
Sure.
I said, yes, of course. I'd be happy to assist. Again, 10 o'clock Friday, Harlan Street, right where Pine Tree Brook crosses. Should you be interested?
And what is Chris Hirsch's position?
He's the person who took down the boards for NEPRA, and I'm sorry, I just don't remember his title, but I shall have it for you by email when I see him. How's that?
Perfect.
Yep.
Sounds good.
And that's what I have to report today.
All right. Sounds good. Any other business? Sounds like it's time to adjourn. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
No discussion allowed? All in favor? All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, all.
Everyone. Good night.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Everyone,
Yep.
good to see you again.
Yeah, good to have you back.
Welcome back, Arthur.
Good to be seen too, Arthur.
Thank you.